The morning sun had barely risen above the city when the man in torn clothes dragged his feet toward the gleaming glass doors of a luxury car dealership. His shirt, once white, had turned the color of dust and despair. His hands trembled slightly as he pressed the glass, leaving a faint mark that the receptionist would soon rush to wipe away. He wasn't supposed to be there. At least, that's what everyone inside thought. He stood for a moment, staring at the shimmering vehicles lined under the soft glow of showroom lights, silver, red, black, all polished so perfectly that they reflected every light and shadow. He gazed at them as if they were dreams he once held, now parked far beyond his reach. His eyes carried a story, one of loss, one of time, and one of silence. The staff noticed him immediately. Some frowned. One whispered, "What's he doing here?" Another said softly, "He must be lost." He wasn't lost. He knew exactly why he was there. He stepped forward, slowly, his worn-out shoes squeaking against the marble floor. A salesman, young and sharply dressed in a navy blue suit, approached him with a forced smile that barely hid his irritation. "Sir," the salesman said, his voice dripping with disdain, "this place is for customers only." The man smiled faintly, though his lips trembled. I wanted to see that car," he said, pointing toward a black luxury sedan gleaming in the corner. The salesman's expression hardened. "You can't see anything here, sir. These cars aren't for—" He paused, glancing at the man's tattered clothes, then continued, "For your type. Please, step outside." The beggar didn't move. His eyes still lingered on the car, not out of greed, but longing. "It's beautiful," he whispered, as if speaking to himself. That whisper ignited annoyance in the salesman. Within seconds, 2 other staff members joined him. One grabbed the man's arm. "You need to leave before you disturb our customers." And just like that, the frail man was pushed outside, his body stumbling into the hard pavement. He fell to his knees, a sharp pain rising through his ribs. But even from outside the glass doors, he could still see the black car gleaming under the soft yellow light, almost like a memory he couldn't let go of. People passed by without looking. Some glanced for a moment, then turned away. One woman threw a coin near him, not noticing that his eyes weren't begging, they were remembering. He picked himself up slowly, brushing the dust off his pants. The receptionist, peering through the glass, muttered to the salesman, "Good job. We don't need that kind of mess in here." But what no one inside knew was that the man they had just thrown out wasn't just a beggar. He was a name that once echoed in that very city, a man who had built more than just wealth, he had built lives. Years ago, his company's logo had been engraved on cars far grander than the ones inside that showroom. But time, betrayal, and fate had stripped him of everything. He walked away from the dealership, his reflection fading against the glass. His steps were slow, yet his mind raced through the years he had lost, the empire he had once led, the trust he had once given, the love he had once lost. That evening, the sky turned crimson. Somewhere in the city, a black limousine pulled into the same dealership. A man in a charcoal suit stepped out, tall, composed, and commanding. The same salesman rushed to greet him, his voice now full of honey and respect. "Good evening, sir. Welcome. We've been expecting you. The owner will be arriving shortly for your private meeting." The stranger nodded. His expression was unreadable. He walked around the cars, running his fingers lightly over the sleek surfaces. His eyes stopped on the same black sedan from the morning, the one that the beggar had gazed upon. Just then, the dealership owner arrived, a broad-shouldered man in his 50s, wearing a watch that cost more than some people's homes. He extended his hand eagerly. "Mr. Amir, we're honored to have you here. I can't believe we finally get to meet the investor everyone's been talking about." The man turned, his face calm. "I prefer to be called Amir Khan," he said simply. The owner laughed. "Of course, everyone knows your reputation. The man who bought out 3 companies in a single week. The silent investor who saved an entire automotive brand from collapse." Amir smiled faintly. "I'm not here to save anyone today. I'm here to buy." The owner's grin widened. "Wonderful. Which model interests you?" Amir's eyes drifted again toward the black sedan. "That one," he said quietly. "It caught my attention earlier today." The owner chuckled. "Ah yes, one of our finest. You have a good eye, sir." Not everyone appreciates craftsmanship the way you do. Amir's smile didn't change. Someone reminded me of that this morning. The owner frowned slightly. Someone? Yes, Amir replied. A man. He was here earlier. I believe your staff threw him out. The owner's face stiffened. Oh, that. Some vagrant wandered in. We had to remove him. These people. They don't belong in places like this. Amir's expression darkened slightly. And who decides where they belong? He asked quietly. The owner hesitated, unsure how to respond. Well, sir, you know how it is, we have an image to maintain. Our customers. Your customers. Amir interrupted softly. Are your pride. The room grew silent. Even the salesman nearby froze, sensing the tension. Amir stepped closer to the black car, running his fingers over the hood. That man, he said, his voice almost a whisper, once stood in my position. He knew what it felt like to build something from nothing, to be respected, then forgotten. He turned slowly toward the owner. Do you know who he was? The owner shook his head nervously. No, sir, just some beggar. Amir's eyes glistened with emotion. That beggar, he said softly, was me. The owner's jaw dropped. The salesman's face drained of color. The entire dealership fell into stunned silence. I came here this morning, Amir continued, his tone calm but laced with pain, to look at this car. Not to buy it, to remember what it felt like to dream again. I was thrown out before I could even speak. And I realized then, how far we've fallen as people. The owner stammered, Sir, I had no idea. Of course, you didn't, Amir said quietly. You didn't see me. You saw what I was wearing. You saw what I wasn't, not who I was. He took a deep breath and looked around the showroom. This dealership, your cars, your polished glass, they mean nothing if humanity is left outside your door. The owner tried to speak, but Amir raised a hand. Don't apologize to me. Apologize to the next man you judge. Because one day, it might be the same man who owns the building you stand in. He turned toward the salesman, whose hands trembled slightly. And you, Amir said softly, when you see someone who looks broken, remember that the strongest people you'll ever meet are often the ones who've been broken the most. The salesman's eyes welled up. Sir, I didn't know. No one ever does, Amir replied. That's why the world keeps forgetting what kindness looks like. He reached into his coat pocket and took out a folder. Here, he said, handing it to the owner. I'm still buying the dealership. But not for the reason you think. The owner blinked, confused. Buying the dealership. Yes, Amir said. I've decided to acquire it. And the first change I'll make is simple. Anyone who walks through those doors will be treated with respect, no matter how they look. You can either stay and learn, or you can leave now. The owner stood speechless. He nodded shakily, murmuring, Of course, sir, of course. Amir walked toward the entrance, the same glass doors he had been thrown out of just hours ago. But this time, when he opened them, he wasn't pushed. The entire staff stood frozen, humbled. He looked back once, his voice quiet but firm. Never forget. Wealth can buy cars, but only character can drive humanity forward. Outside, the city lights flickered like distant stars. The same spot where he had fallen earlier was still marked with faint dust. Amir stood there for a long time, his heart heavy but alive. He whispered, maybe I needed to be thrown out, to walk back in as the man I truly am. The wind brushed past his face, carrying with it the faint hum of the city, the sound of engines, of voices, of lives intertwined. Somewhere, deep inside, he felt a strange peace, not because he had reclaimed his wealth, but because he had reclaimed his worth. Later that night, when the dealership closed, the salesman found a note on the black car's windshield. It read, greater than, never measure a man by what he wears. Measure him by what he's endured. He read it twice, his eyes wet. The next morning, when a poor old man approached the dealership asking for water, the salesman didn't push him away. He offered him a chair instead. And that's how the world began to change. Not through speeches, not through laws, but through one act of remembrance, one moment of kindness, one understanding of what it truly means to see someone. Because sometimes, the man you push away is the same man who built the road you walk on. Sometimes, the beggar you mock is the mirror of your own forgotten humility. And sometimes, Life disguises angels as the broken, just to test whether we still know how to love without condition. Amir never returned to that dealership again. He didn't need to. The lesson had already parked itself in the hearts of those who had once judged him. Years later, that same showroom became known not for its cars, but for its compassion. They started a small initiative, Drive with Dignity, offering jobs and training to the homeless, helping them rebuild their lives. And in every training session, the story was told again and again, of the beggar who was thrown out, unaware that he was an undisguised billionaire, and a teacher of humanity. Because wealth fades, titles change, and faces age. But kindness never loses its shine. And when people asked Amir, years later, what that day had meant to him, he smiled softly and said, "It reminded me that the poorest man in the world is the one who has lost his compassion." The crowd listening to him that day didn't clap right away. They sat in silence, letting the weight of his words sink in. Then, slowly, applause filled the hall, not the loud kind, but the kind that comes from hearts stirred awake. And as Amir stepped down from the stage, he looked up at the sky, whispering, "Thank you for throwing me out, so I could find my way back in." Because sometimes, being cast out by the world is the only way to return to yourself.